convey unto you our messages, and to cause you to grow in purity, and to impart unto you revelation and wisdom, and to teach you that which you did not know. He is an imparter of knowledge to others. The Quran has indicated in a number of passages that those who have knowledge can comprehend the nature of God and the truth of all revelation sent to Prophet Muhammad, and how it can be a guide to those who seek the nearness of God. For instance, there are many verses in this context. I will just read one of them. Nay, but this divine writ consists of messages clear to the hearts of all who are gifted with innate knowledge. Ilm, the word ilm occurs in these many passages. The term ilm in the above citations has the connotation of intuitive spiritual perception. The Quran emphasizes the importance of knowledge in many ways. It says, for instance, can they who know and those who do not know be deemed equal? There are also many prophetic hadith which are on the importance of knowledge, seeking of knowledge, very highly commended in these authentic traditions of the Prophet. There is a lot of historical evidence that shows that the Prophet Muhammad considered the education of his community a matter of high priority. As Goldziher has pointed out, Muhammad himself, partly it may be on utilitarian grounds, attached great importance to the acquisition of the most indispensable elements of knowledge, may be inferred from the condition on which he released prisoners of war after his victory at Badr, the Battle of Badr, 624 AD. The Prophet employed several Quraysh captives to teach the boys at Medina to write, and this service counted as their ransom. There are 5 sources of knowledge which the poet philosopher Iqbal, outstanding Muslim thinker, reformist, modernist thinker, identifies 5 sources of knowledge. The revelation, which is knowledge that is given directly by God, in this case, the Quran. Sense perception, which is knowledge gained through the senses. Reason, which is the discursive faculty, logical understanding by means of which human beings acquire both theoretical and empirical knowledge. Intuition, which is a mode of knowledge in which a direct revelation is made to the mind, which is similar to direct revelation made to the eye, when it sees a physical object. And history, the last source is history, was regarded as a source of knowledge and inspiration by Iqbal, who referred to the Quranic view as follows. He says, history in the language of the Quran is the days of God. It is one of the most essential teachings of the Quran that nations are collectively judged and suffer for their misdeeds here and now. In order to establish this proposition, the Quran constantly cites historical instances and urges upon the reader to reflect on the past and present experience of mankind. I come to the summation of my argument now. In the foregoing narrative, I have examined what I understand to be normative Islamic view of peace and education. Both terms or concepts are complex and denote a worldview. In the first part of my presentation, I have drawn attention to what is meant by peace in Quranic terms and how it can come into existence. In order to enter Darussalam, to which we are invited by God, believers must develop in themselves physical, psychological, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual attributes to which the Quran refers repeatedly. The inculcation of these attributes will enable a Muslim, one who professes Islam, to become a mu'min, one who possesses Iman. A mu'min is committed to fulfilling Haqooq Allah, rights of God, and Haqooq al-Ibad under all circumstances. Prophet Muhammad sought to establish a model society in which the right of all people was recognized and honored. In today's complicated world, it may not be possible to replicate the Prophet's example with exactitude. But one thing is clear. According to normative Islam, based on the teachings of the Quran and the lived experience of Prophet Muhammad, justice remains a precondition for peace. In the second part of my presentation, I have stated the normative Islamic view of education, which is a process of acquiring or imparting knowledge. Both the Quran and the Prophet attach the highest importance to it. God is referred as Al-Alim 157 times, as I have stated before. And the inculcating of this divine attribute in themselves ought to be the religious duty of all Muslims. Like peace, knowledge is understood as a prerequisite for any society that aspires to be Islamic. It has multiple sources which are recognized and affirmed by normative Islamic teachings. In the light of what I have said about the normative Islamic view of peace and education, what does peace education mean to me? There is no easy or simple answer to this question. I do not see peace education only or primarily as an academic project aiming to teach students how to promote peace in areas of conflict. As I have made clear at the onset of this presentation, peace is not simply an absence of war or an instrument of conflict resolution. To me, peace and education are integral and central to the Islamic worldview. Both are rooted in self-surrender to God, Islam, and both entail ongoing striving, jihad, to achieve wholeness in one's individual life, one's relationship to other creations of God, including nature, which is so, and one's society or state. Given the fragmented state of the present day Muslim Ummah, which is so lamentably lacking in both peace and education, as I have described them, I believe that Muslims, especially young Muslims, should engage in a jihad for justice and knowledge. This jihad is necessary if the Muslim Ummah is to emerge from darkness into light. Living in the West or other regions where Islamophobia is rampant and escalating, those Muslims who are open to dialogue with people of other faith, mainly Christians and Jews, are often drawn to peace education as a means of mitigating bigotry and hatred toward their communities. I know this because I have been one such Muslim who has been involved in interreligious dialogue with Christians and Jews for more than 4 decades. I have a lifelong commitment to engaging in interreligious and intercultural dialogue, which I regard as Quranic injunction, but I have come to believe that the pursuit of both peace and knowledge, or peace and education across religious and cultural divides, should be a two-way process. In summation, I want to urge young Muslims to internalize the teachings of the Quran and Prophet Muhammad regarding peace, education, and knowledge, and put them into practice in their own lives and in their communities. I would like to encourage open-hearted and open-minded non-Muslims who want to engage in a dialogue with Muslims to review the long history of the negative imaging of Islam and its prophets, as well as the history of Spain in the Middle Ages, when Muslims, Christians, and Jews interacted with each other in a spirit of coexistence. It is important for Muslims, as well as non-Muslims, to know the history of their past interaction. For as George Santayana has wisely observed, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan, for enlightening us thus. Very moving. So we have some time for questions. I have one that has been sent to me in the chat, and then and then I'm going to ask people, if you click on the participant icon down below, you will find over on the right that you will have the opportunity to raise your hand. If you have a question for Dr. Hassan, I will call on you that way, or you too can post a question in the chat. But Dr. Hassan, I will start with the question that has
Yeah.
been posted to me. Despite the good content of the Quran, which you have just elucidated for us,
Yeah.
The question sort of grounds in that question of what leads to violence or radicalization in Islamic countries, or within Islamic communities in non-Islamic countries, which is always argued from the Quran. Is there, so in other words, other content in the Quran can be used in favor of violence. Is there a hermeneutic that excludes the arguments of violence in the Quran that we might be able to argue for in our context?
Yeah, sure. You know, the main problem here with interpreting the Quran, as well as any other scripture, the Torah for the Jews, or the New Testament. What the problem is that when people are arguing about whether it promotes peace and war or whatever, do what is called selective reading. They take one line from here and they don't know what the context is. And they say, you know, for instance, the Quran says you should kill everybody who doesn't agree with you or has a different point of view, etc. So in order to understand, and that's why, you know, when you read my paper, I hope inshallah you will read it, that it gives you a lot of Quranic texts, which in my judgment, convey the real essence of the Quran, what the Quran is saying. The very title Islam and Muslim means peace. That's the fundamental sense of it. But the Quran is not structured like the Bible. It is not chronological. It's not historical. It is more like what you might call wisdom literature. It covers a lot of subjects. And to understand the Quran, I mean, you cannot really understand what the Quran is saying unless you read all of it and you understand the spirit of the Quran in its entirety. And if you do that, and what I've been trying to teach students for 4 or 5 decades of my life is read the whole book and then see what it means. But because what we have been doing for decades is we take the most negative image we can find in any of our religions and say this is what it is. So that's my answer to that. That if the Quran is read in its entirety and one sees what is the essential message of the Quran, you would not have that problem. But I understand your question, and I have answered it. I think thousands of times in my tenure as an academic and as a person who is an activist. I have spent the majority of my life in two activities. One is I developed the discipline of feminist theology in Islam, and the second is that I have worked very hard on developing the groundwork for interreligious dialogue between Muslims, Jews, and Christians. So I understand the question, and I don't have any simple answer for it. If people don't have the time or patience to read the Quran in its entirety, then they are likely to be misled by a few words here and there, which are in a certain context. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. There is another question that has been posted in the chat. The question acknowledges that people try to persuade others regarding the correctness of their own religion over other religions.
Yeah.
And the question then is there any prediction in the Quran that all people must have one faith?
No, not at all. And I think that I read one verse of the Quran in which it says that you have to all those who believe in Islam, those who believe in the Jewish scriptures, those who believe in the Christian scriptures, and it goes on to say, any who believe in God and work righteousness shall be rewarded by God. I think that in its open-mindedness to other religions, there really is no religion that goes further than that. I think Islam is the most liberal of all religions. And I can cite many statements in the Quran to that effect. Now, unfortunately, what has happened again, it's not only done by non-Muslims, it's also done by a lot of Muslims who don't really understand the essence of the Quran. And for example, take the word jihad. The word, it's one of the central concepts of the Quran. And what it means is struggle. And we distinguish between two kinds of struggle in Islam. There's jihad al-akbar and jihad asghar, the bigger jihad, the lesser jihad. And the Prophet said that when the Muslims were coming back from a battle, the Prophet said, what you are returning from is the lesser jihad. What you are going back to is the bigger jihad, which is against yourself, improving yourself, purifying yourself, making yourself better. And so, jihad does not mean war or holy war. The concept of holy war, a holy war is a war that is fought in the name of God, and either it ends in victory or it ends in death. You have to continue this war until you are successful. The word holy war, the concept of holy war, jihad is often described as holy war, but holy war is the exact translation of the word crusade, which happened in the Middle Ages, and these were prompted by the church and by Christian kings who went to free the Holy Land from infidels, Muslims who had ruled over it for a long time. There is no concept of holy war in Islam. There's, war. The only kind of war that is permitted by the Quran, by Islam, is defensive war. If somebody attacks you, if somebody expels you from your home, you have the right of self-defense. And the Quran has said many, many times, God loves not aggressors. So there is no room for that. But unfortunately, Muslims have come to believe, especially young Muslims, that jihad means war, and war against not only non-Muslims or certain regions or countries, but it means war against anybody who doesn't agree with you. So there's a war between extremists, right-wing extremists fighting with or condemning people who they think are liberal. I've had to face that all my life because of my work in feminist theology. I am pleading for better education. And, I hope I have conveyed that my main audience, my targeted audience is Muslims, is young Muslims, that they need to understand what is meant by peace and what is meant by education and what is meant by jihad. They need to read the Quran. They need to understand it, because if they do that, then they would not subscribe to these very erroneous and wrong interpretations of the Quran, of Islam, that we see all around the world. The non-Muslims will not appreciate the essence, the purity, the beauty of Islam until the Muslims start understanding it themselves and start living it. You have to live it. And I think this is a real problem that, that needs to be confronted. So I hope these are long questions, requiring very elaborate answers. So, but I'm trying to do what I can in a few words. So.
Thank you. Since I see no hands raised,
Okay.
and no other questions have been placed in the chat yet, I'm going to ask a question of my own.
Absolutely.
You've been living in the United States for many decades now.
Yeah, I have.
We're seeing some struggle in recent months.
Yes.
So between the Black Lives Matter movement and other such rights movements in the United States, are you seeing young Muslims, how are you seeing young Muslims, that movement and immigration issues and other issues that are happening in the United States?
Yeah. as you know, I'm sure, undoubtedly you know that this present administration of the United States and the President of the United States, that he regards Muslims as enemy number one, and Islam is, I mean, that was one of the first things he did was banning Muslims from 7 countries entering into the United States, has the most repressive immigration policy, I think, ever in the history of this country. And today also, you know, there are hundreds and thousands of immigrants who have been put into detention centers. There are children who, near the Mexican border, who are put in cages, children separated from their parents. There is so much viciousness in this atmosphere, and no recognition in this by the administration of this country about racial inequity, you know, about what Black Lives Matter and Brown Lives Matter and all these movements for justice are saying. They do not understand. As I see it, I've lived in this country since 1976. I see this country almost in a state of civil war. It's a very serious situation. We have the election 12 days from now. It's in a state of civil war where half of the country is not understanding, not wanting to understand the other half. So you ask me about Muslims. Muslims are, of course, immigrants mostly, and there are a lot of African Americans who are Muslim, and they have been marching in the streets for, you know, since March. So they're very much in this resistance movement, which is the movement for justice.
Yes.
And I think this country is at a crossroads, because if they are not willing to uphold justice, then, you know, the downfall of this country will come very rapidly. Already, this country, in the last 7 months, we have seen, is not the same country that it was before. It's you know, Americans prided themselves on being, you know, the greatest country in the world, greatest citadel of democracy, etc. Totally incorrect. Not today. And so it's a time of great crisis. And I think that any person who has any conscience and justice, you know, democracy is built on justice towards all, recognition of people's equal rights. And that's the struggle going on. It's a life and death conflict, very serious, that is happening. And I think that, you know, one should learn a lesson from it if possible, because where you know, this administration is avowedly committed to injustice, to not recognizing that, you know, there are any claims, right claims that are demanded by Black Lives Matter and other people. You know, they don't recognize it. They think it's not a right, just protest, but it's a situation of law and order. And so they, you know, you give more rights and authority to the the enforcers of law, to the police and so on. And so I think this is a very, very tough time. And we are all praying that we come out on the right side of history and not go down, you know, to a lower level than we have already come. So that's what I feel, you know. And, you know, I am too old now to march in the streets, but my heart is with those people. And I live in Louisville, you know, and this is the place where Breonna Taylor lived and was murdered. This young 26-year-old woman, and nobody has been charged with her murder. That was the conclusion, but I don't know whether you know or not, but that now, you know, there's another phase of this trial starting, because the Attorney General, who had presented the findings of the case to a grand jury, and he didn't tell them everything, and so the grand jury didn't indict anybody. But once, and you know, the proceedings of grand jury are secret, so nobody can know what they're saying. But yesterday, the court has allowed that all the proceedings be made public, all of them. Wow. And they will probably, I think there'll probably be another trial with a different prosecutor. So it's not over. It's not over. But you know, the city has been in, you know, up in arms and protests everywhere. since this March. And I'm happy to see all this, this struggle for justice. Justice never comes without a struggle. So, I am happy to see people struggling for justice, but I'm not happy to see that there are so many people who don't recognize it, you know?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough. Okay.
Thank you,
Anyway,
Doctor. I want to say amen to that prayer.
thank
A
you.
couple of my students are currently in ministering in Louisville, and so yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. And I will be sending my paper, which has a lot more stuff in it. And I would be happy to answer any questions later on. Please feel free to give my contact information, my email address to any of your students, because sometimes, it takes time
Yes.
to formulate your thoughts and questions. So thank you very much. And my best of luck to the rest of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. People, after this wonderful beginning of the day, I invite us to take a brief break and try to be back in 8 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. So after that wonderful opening from Dr. Hassan, we're going to shift into a panel conversation. And the way we'll structure this is that I'll introduce each speaker, they'll speak for 20 minutes. I will then turn to the next speaker, introduce them, they'll speak for 20 minutes. And the third speaker I will introduce, and then they will speak for 20 minutes. At the end, we will invite a panel discussion where they can address each other's presentations, and the audience will be invited to ask their questions. You can do that through the chat box, or we can, people can raise their hands and ask that way. We're going to begin with Uli Jager. And by the way, I'm gonna botch here. I'm likely to botch the names. I apologize in advance for that, but I'm trying. Uli Jager is the head of the Department of Peace Education and Global Learning at the Berghoff Foundation. And so I will ask him to step forward and begin his talk.
Okay, thanks very much. Can you hear me? Everything is fine? Okay, great. So thanks very much for organizing this conference. It's really great. And of course, thanks for the invitation. It's a great honor and it's a great pleasure, and it's great to see all the colleagues and the names and sometimes the pictures in the slides on this laptop. So great. Happy to be with you. I want to share with you some experiences with one project we started a few months ago. And I will do this together with my colleague Dagmar Nolden, because she can give you a very authentic insight into this wonderful small project. So from my side, just a few, let's say, background informations. Maybe you remember 3 or 4 years ago in 2017, there was a big conference in Germany about the responsibility of religions for peace, organized by the German Foreign Office. And during this conference, a group of participants decided to continue the discussions about peace education. And then we came in and we organized together with the German Foreign Office a workshop for this group. And after this workshop, which went very, very well and was really great, we had the opportunity to develop together with the colleagues a manual, and we call this manual Peace Education in Religious Contexts. And we developed a draft of this manual. And then after developing this, we are now in the second step of this project. And this is to test this manual in very different contexts. And this is the project, and the project is called Peace Education Meets Religion. So from my perspective, and this is a peace education perspective, of course, it's so great to have the opportunity to think about the relations between peace education and religions. And just for the background, you know that in our understanding, peace education is a process, and we say it's a process of acquiring not only knowledge but also values, and it's a process of developing attitudes, skills, and behavior to live in harmony with oneself, with others, of course, and with the natural environment. And in our understanding, peace education aims to reduce violence, support the transformation of conflicts and advance the peace capacities of individuals, groups, societies, and institutions. And this is the background for this manual. And the idea was how to implement these basic ideas of peace education in religious context. And then we had this big chance to test this manual in this new project. And I give over to my colleague Dagmar, and she will give you a few informations about this new inspiring project.
Thank you very much, Uli, for this brief introduction. Hello and welcome, everybody. It's my pleasure to have this possibility of a super short input as part of this virtual conference on peace education and religions, which is interesting just because we spend so much time thinking about that with our local partners and as part of this project. I would love to share a small PowerPoint presentation. For that, I might need the permission of the host, which I don't have at the moment. Would it be possible to get the permission?
You should have it now. You're listed as a co-host.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, so I will briefly start with basically a few quotes. And we discussed with some of the project partners from the first conference that took place in 2017 and the second conference that took place in 2018, organized by the German Foreign Office, about peace education and religion and how the two go together. And there were different aspects for why this is relevant. And one said, for instance, in concrete terms, I believe that the great added value of religion is twofold. On the one hand, religion is often understood as part of the problem. Religion in peace education means to learn how to expose such false chains of argumentation and to make it clear that it has nothing to do with religion. Therefore, you have to prepare training courses and provide pedagogical material so that people in this field can really expose it. On the other hand, the great chance of religion in peace education is to harness the religious motivation and the power of religiosity for peace education. And another of our colleagues who worked with us on the project said, as members of religious communities, we have a great task: to be honest with ourselves, to set an example that we may be questioned, because religion, as well as we all know, can also be abused, and it is also abused. If we treat each other honestly, if we also say we make mistakes, however, we are also inspired by the thought of peace that is in every religion and in every human being, and that brings us together, we can deal honestly with each other without hidden ideas. We can deal honestly and to look together what is needed now in this situation in which we find ourselves together. And I would like to quote one last aspect that has been voiced out by Sheikh Khalid bin Tunis: the possibility to draw from the well of wisdom, and I say wisdom of religions, not of their theology, from the wisdom and the spirituality of religions, is something that he perceives as crucial when religion and peace education are thought together, and the synergies of the two should move forward in a fruitful manner. As Uli Jäger had started, the project was first part of two conferences that were launched by the German Foreign Office as part of their initiative on responsibilities of religions for peace. And in 2019, we started with a small group of representatives of these participants from the 2 workshops Bauke Foundation had organized for the German Foreign Office on peace education and religion to develop a manual. This draft manual is now being tested in 3 contexts. It is tested and piloted in the context of Cameroon, in the context of France, and in the context of Israel and Palestine. The objectives of the project are not only to pilot the manual. It is, first of all, to strengthen peace education capacities and competencies of religious and religiously motivated multipliers in formal and non-formal education settings. Then, for sure, to further develop and sharpen peace education and religious context, hence to have a space where we can reflect about what it means, where are our chances and where are limitations in this regard. And then lastly, basically, the actual work on further developing the manual to introduce it, implement it, and finalize it, including translations into different languages. The target groups that we work with for this purpose differ. And one of the reasons is that we do not work in different contexts to also have different religious contexts and regional contexts and conflict settings, but to also work with different target groups and get more insights on the possibilities of the methods we jointly came up with our local partners with. In Cameroon, we are working together with leaders and members of youth groups who are engaged in education and peace building, and with leaders and representatives of women groups who are active in peace building, as well as with religious leaders and representatives of different denominations who are mostly also engaged in the formal educational settings, such as religious schools. The particular focus in Cameroon lies on the currently very much conflict-driven Anglophone part of the country. And therefore, in addition to the challenges that are put and the strains and stresses that are put on the region by COVID-19, it is also quite interesting to accommodate the challenges that come up when working in a place where the tensions are rising constantly at the moment. The second context where we have already started working in July with a qualification course for multipliers is France. France is somewhat misleading in that regard because actually our partners are based in France, but the participants were all mostly French speaking. However, they came from 8 different countries. So the context there, one should rather say it is a context that is somehow connected by the Muslim or Sufi Alawi belief, rather, and it's focusing on educators and members of the Muslim Scout movement, as well as the organization ISA. And then in Israel and Palestine, the focus is particularly on a training of trainers for the staff members of the Rossing Center, our local partner there, and another partner organization that is based in Palestine. So there it is currently a bit of a challenge to really get beyond the possibility of implementing it face-to-face due to COVID-19 as well. And our project turned into a project that is purely happening in the virtual world at the moment, except of a number of workshops that some of the facilitators and multipliers from the French training could already facilitate over the summer when presence-based workshops were actually possible. The project partners in those settings are in Cameroon, Laura Agnola Tufon from the Justice and Peace Service in Bamenda. Then in Israel-Palestine, Sarah Bernstein from the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue. And in France, Sheikh Khalid bin Tunis, as well as Tawfiq Harchid, who both represent, to a certain extent, the Muslim Scout movement in France and Germany, as well as the NGO AISA. In Germany, we also partner with Dr. Thomas Wipf, who represents Religions for Peace. Concerning the project activities, I already mentioned that is basically a project that is taking now place in a virtual space. We work together with our partners who organize with us training for trainers or multipliers. And those multipliers afterwards, in a sort of a snowball effect, test the manual or pilot the methods from the manual. We have developed a scheme to get structured feedback from them, collected, and then once we receive the feedback from the 3 contexts, actually revise the manual together and look into what things need to be added. The part that is even more interesting is the part when it comes to the question of basically objective number 2 of the project, which is how do religion and peace education go together? And interestingly enough, it seems to be a thing that you can always continue to reflect upon. Just 2 days ago, we had a follow-up session with our group we worked with from the French context. And the question came up, so why do we need this manual to just have on the front page written peace education meets religion and peace education in religious context? Because some of the multipliers we work with suggest that we do understand where the benefits are. We do see the synergies. We are aware of the synergies and we think they are crucial. However, we feel that for some people it might be misleading and some people might rather take it as a no, we don't want to be part of this. And no, for me, religion is something that is not peace. For me, religion might rather lead to, it might be the cause for why I had to leave my country. So it is very much related to a sort of violence that was directed against me. And if I talk about peace education, if I want to learn about peace education, then please, can we just talk about peace education only without that context? And the discussion about that, for instance, was very interesting because what we came up with was that it needs both. It is not the one or the other. It is peace education by itself matters as much as religion by itself matters. But we have to acknowledge that the synergies are there and that we can use those synergies. But it always depends on the context we are in, whether the synergy is appropriate. It depends on the target group we are working with, whether the synergy is appropriate. And it depends also on how the person who facilitates workshops or sessions can make use of both sort of wells of wisdom that the synergy is built upon. That being said, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I have some slides for questions, comments, feedback that are mostly welcome, and I'm really curious to hear what you as experts in the field also think about the chances as well as limitations of thinking the two together and practicing the two together as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dagmar. So just in addition, maybe one information or one offer. Of course, we would be more than happy to share this draft of this manual with you. So if you are interested in, please come up and write us an email, and we will do this. And so this was what we have in our sense to share with you, not an academic lecture at the beginning of this session, but an insight into a new ongoing project, and maybe it was inspiring for you. Thanks so very much.
It was certainly inspiring for me. I'm very impressed with the projects that you have going. and look forward to learning more as you pull the voices together. And in terms of the questions, comments, and feedback, we'll do that after we've heard from the other two. Okay, is that all right? Perfect, wonderful. Next, then, I would like to introduce Dr. Veronica Mikic, I hope, from Universität Klagenfurt. She will be sharing with us on elementary education and refugee children and peace education. Dr. Mikic.
So, hello from me. A question to you. Can you see anything that I'm sharing now on my laptop?
Not
I'm
yet,
afraid.
not
No,
yet,
not
but
yet.
we can,
Yeah.
but we can make you a can make you a co-host, and then you'll
Yes.
be able to share.
Yes, yes, please. Mhm.
You are now a co-host. You should be able to share.
Okay, I will try it again. Can you see anything?
No, so have you hit share screen
Yes, I have.
and then chosen, it opens a dialog window and you choose the
Yeah.
window you want.
You're right. You're right. Okay.
And then at the bottom right of that, hit share.
Mm-hmm.
There we are.
There we go. There we go. Okay. So, you can see anything or nothing?
Yes, we can see the slideshow, though something has just popped up to block the slideshow.
Yeah, I see it. Oh no, I don't want to leave the meeting. What is this? Sorry for that. Okay.
There, now we see the slideshow again.
The slides. Okay, and you can see me as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hello from my side. I'm Veronica Mikic from Austria, Klagenfurt. And I want to send you a warm welcome from our sunny weather outside. And I'm very pleased to be here and to speak to you now. I want to tell you something about our project that took part in 2015, 16, and 17 here in Carinthia. It is about education at eye level with refugee children and teenagers in the transit quarter in Carinthia. Yes, so flight and political displacement represent an abrupt and mostly forced and unplanned break in the biography of people, of children, adolescents. Especially for children and adolescents, the unprepared separation from family, circle of friends, educational institutions, social and cultural environment means a decisive turning point with previously experienced everyday routines and familiar situations that shaped a child's life in the past and made it seem classifiable. In order to illustrate the peaceful participation or the preparation of the accompanied refugee children for their inclusion in the Austrian education system, our pilot project, organized and carried out on a voluntary basis with an educational science approach, will be presented here and now and be used as an opportunity for good practice in the design of low-threshold educational offers in collective accommodations. So, our project took part into 15, 16, and 17. And I have brought you some numbers. Currently, we have about 80 million of people that are refugees from 5 countries, the most highest numbers of these 5 countries. Currently in Austria, in 2018, we had about 20,800 positive asylum decisions. And what is really interesting is the number about of the unaccompanied underage refugees. They were 390. In 2015 and 16, when our project took part, in the period of September to February 2016, this is interesting because we had 3,700 unaccompanied underage refugees in comparison to the number that we have now. Okay, so this photograph was taken by me. It is a small word, but it has a very deep impact. It was written by a young man on a column after a human rights workshop with refugee people in the transit quarter in Carinthia. And this word stands for mindfulness and awareness and respect and appreciation towards all human beings, towards adults and children in general, as well as towards children and people with escape experience. And it was very touching seeing him writing this small word. It's about 5 centimeters, not bigger, in this on this very big column in this hall. Concerning experiences of refugee children who arrived at the transit quarter, our research group found a lot of exceptional situations for these children, and we found that the children bring they have brought a huge number of exceptional experiences with them. For example, feeling the feeling of highest threat and powerlessness, or crossing different borders, or feeling separated from families on the run, and being a victim, for example, of sexualized violence. How were the health conditions of the kids who came to the collective accommodation? So they were examined medically, and we found that they had diseases like diseases in the respiratory tract, or parasitic diseases, exhaustion, vomiting, and we saw lots of blisters on the feet, lots of injuries on the feet, abrasions and sprains. Yeah, as we all know, flight is a transition, and especially flight for kids is really difficult because it doesn't only describe a phase of life. For these kids, this phase lasts for some years, for a lot of years, and is a period of discontinuity. This here, for example, you see me. This is me with a colleague of mine. There were about, I don't know, countless number of kids, and we were playing music and acting and playing the theater with them. They have arrived at a transit quarter and really upset, and it was chaotic. And we tried to make music with them to chill them. Yeah, transitions as well. They, as I said before, they are abrupt breaks in the living world of the kid, and they are accompanied by fear and a lot of stress, and of course there are also breaks in the educational biography of the kids. And Leitner calls it the chronification of provisionality. Yeah, concerning the children in transit quarters, what did our research group find here? We found really lots of stressful scenarios at the same time. And we found, and this is really interesting, we found that the longer the children stayed at the transit quarter, and the more intensive they took part with the life there. The faster they adapted to change, the faster they adapted to new children, new friends, new situations, new people. the longer they stayed there. And what we also found is that they really definitely needed more pedagogical and relational assistance. And we tried to give them this assistance. And also, not only the parents or the adolescents, also the parents needed assistance, because they saw that the biography, the educational biography of the kids was suddenly stopped. There was a break, and this was really disappointing for a lot of parents. And we tried to help them and the kids to follow up with their education, with maths and English and so on. In Carinthia, the school access in our reference period in Carinthia, there were about 1,000 children that started school, going to school, and this is, I think, a high number. Here are some photos for you directly from the transit quarter, and you see us working with the kids. You see some situations. You see the blue beds. They were from the army, and you see the kids being taught, making sports, learning German as a foreign language via singing or dancing or so. In addition to facilitating the children's guaranteed right to education and participation, and here you see the UN conventions on the rights of the child, our educational initiative focused on peace education and the creation of an open educational space for refugee children and teenagers. The target group was also cooperatively prepared for the impending individual transitions into the Austrian educational and political system. Here again, some photos of our work, educational work with the children in the transit quarter. And of course, we designed an educational image of the child. And this image led us through our project for 2 years. And we developed the kid as a self-active and interactive human being, self-forming and being able to communicate or to negotiate and to coping with new situations with his or her resources. We defined 5 principles of our educational research work. This was self-education co-construction. We co-constructed our educational environment with our teachers. We had 27 teachers, intercultural teachers, and with the teachers, with the staff, and with the kids and parents. Then we worked with the situation approach and the life world orientation of Hans Thiersch, because the refugee children, they had to face a lot of new and unfamiliar new situations of life. Then we did a lot of language work and of course social work and coaching, especially for the parents or for other people. Here you see the small hand of small Adam. Then he was 1.5 years, and now he is 7 years and goes to school. So the processes of self-education, as I said before, is one of our 5 principles of the social and pedagogical work with the kids. So the self-education here we defined as a highly complex process with active self-control. The children were constructing, creating, experimenting, building, painting, communicating, and asking questions. And we try to answer the questions in a company with the kids. Here you see teenagers in a teenage class of Afghanistan, and 2 kids in elementary stage also from Afghanistan. Yeah, so as said here, the process of participation, the children discover and recognize their competencies, and we were their guides. We helped them to develop their competencies in this really chaotic and stressful environment of a transit quarter. Here you see we worked with puppets, and the man in the middle, he is from Syria, and he was one of our volunteers, and he was teaching German and Arabic and he assisted me teaching German, and he translated everything in the mother tongue for the kids in Arabic, for example. So it was easier for all of us to teach. We taught in 4 to 5 languages every day. Yeah, which conditions of impact did we have? Of course, our pedagogical specialists, the parents, the life world, the kids, and teenagers. And what did we have to face? We had to feed needs and requirements. We had to face life topics or stressful conditions. And we tried to develop together values and standards that were important for our cooperation in the transit quarter. Our key topics were participation, of course, peace education, and open space concepts to lead a successful training of the children and successful social work with the kids. Of course, we needed personnel, we needed individual resources with the refugee children and of our staff, and we tried to cooperate all of us together in a resource-oriented environment. We also had to face challenges. What was difficult for us? It was really difficult to create optimal conditions for learning, for education. The transit quarter was chaotic and loud. We had a lack of space, lack of time, lack of furniture, lack of material, and lots of noise and diseases as well. And because of this, we tried to design a pedagogical frame that would fit for all of us. That means we had to feed individual personal conditions, individual pedagogical conditions, and we really tried to include, and I would guess we really managed to do so, to include all existing resources and competences of all of us. As a good example, you see it here, we were using the resources and tried to make the collective accommodation pedagogically usable. On the right picture, you see Jasmine. Jasmine is an English teacher in Syria, and she had the chance to teach English again in our school in the transit quarter. The people with the yellow jackets are our intercultural teachers, and the other people are the participants. Yeah, so as you can see here, we really try to empower not only the children. This is, by the way, this is Masood from Afghanistan. We did not try to empower just only the children, but also the adults and our intercultural staff to give their best for all of us. And now let me lead you really shortly and briefly into our project. We will dive deeply into the project now for 5 minutes, and then we are at the end of this presentation. So how was our project organized? As I said before, it was voluntary work. So all of our teachers, we had 27, they worked voluntarily. It was low threshold, and it was live, practical, and self-activating. And we managed to organize educational education classes from Monday to Sunday for all age groups, for kindergarten children, for elementary school children, as well as for teenagers and grown-ups. But we had to face unpredictable general conditions. So it could be that on one day, 800 or 1,000 people would spontaneously arrive and disturb us and in our learning circles. So, but we did it. Yeah, here you see the social work. We tried to live the language diversity and cultural diversity. We worked with music and movement, with social work, and of course we had workshops concerning human rights and concerning peace mediation. And in our social pedagogical workshops, you see it here, children and grown-ups play together, work together here with this colorful cloth, for example. Some criteria of our educational concept, you can read it by yourself. It stands for itself, like creativity, resource work, violence prevention, or language diversity, or open educational opportunities for all of us, even for me, for all of us. Now some photos again. You see the work with the puppets, language work. Above on the right, this is maths. It's a maths course. And on the right down, it's a German course with kids learning the numbers and alphabet. Music as well, and the old man on the picture above is a math teacher in Syria, and here in the transit quarter he taught maths again in his mother tongue for the kids in their mother tongue, and he taught maths, and he had the opportunity to bring his job to the kids. We had 4 formats of the educational offers. We had an open class for all age groups. We had language offers. We had separate age groups. And we had, of course, cooperation with parents. And now let me slide you through a couple of wonderful pictures from our project. And I will lead you briefly through these pictures. There you see an anti-violence workshop on the left above. We also cooperated with NGOs in our town. We did not have a blackboard. We did not have anything. We brought it and we brought paper and pens and pencils, and we worked. Gym class, music class, German class. The young man on the left he taught physics and chemistry. Our kindergarten children. Yeah. And now, at the end, let me say thank you for your attention. This is the literature and the list of pictures. Thank you.
Just wonderful what you're doing. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm speaking for others in this group, but I spent so much time within the walls of the ivory tower of the university that it's just delightful to see what some of my colleagues are doing out in the world. So praise to both groups so far. And that brings us to the next conversation, which is also focused on the doing of peace education. I'd like to introduce Ursula Kamauf-Eberhardt, who is a program director, or the program director, at the Austrian Study Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Ursula.
Very nice meeting you all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So a very friendly and not so sunny, but still a friendly hello from Schleining. I'm sitting here very close to our castle where we usually have our office building. And I thank you very much for the invitation and for organizing this very interesting and important conference. I will now share with you the presentation. Do you see it already? Hello?
Yes, we do. Yes, great.
So
nice castle.
I'm pleased to show you, this is our office building. It's now under reconstruction, but we hope to move back next year in spring. So we are very lucky to have not only a peace office, but a peace castle in our town. This place, the Austrian Study Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution, is situated very close to the Hungarian border. So we are in the southeast of Austria, And since 1982, we are working in various kinds of peace issues. And it's a nice place for people who are coming to Schleining from all over the world to spend time here. And it really supports our work in a very mystic and unique way. Very briefly, the ASPR is, just for you to understand in which framework our peace education work takes place. The NGO I'm working for was founded in 1982, and since then works in different kinds of peace issues. Our main field of activities is research, training, and practical projects. The research we do mostly supports the development of new training initiatives. Since many years, since the end of the 80s, we are doing training for international organizations such as UN, EU, the OSCE, and different kinds of international NGOs. And we are training mostly civilians. And our training was started when 1992, Boutros Ghali, during the Agenda for Peace, or at the Agenda for Peace, said that it's not enough to simply have a goodwill, but civilians have to be trained to go abroad and support peace activities. And then we are implementing projects in different post-conflict societies. Today I was invited to talk about our peace education, and now you see the castle as we use it for the peace education. It's a bit more colorful, but still mystic. We are doing different kinds of projects in the peace education, in our peace education activities. So the biggest one is the Peace Weeks, and I'm going to introduce it to you a bit later. So far, we have had 16,000 pupils participating in the Peace Weeks, and they made our life more colorful, and I hope we made their life in school a bit more peaceful. In parallel to the Peace Weeks, we are doing teacher training. So the teachers who come to Schleining, to our castle with the pupils, they get trained as well. Then together with the University for Pedagogical Issues in Burgenland, we are offering a university training. It's called Global Peace Education, and it lasts for 2 years, because we very much believe that it's so important to train educators, teachers in peace-related issues, because very often this could prevent a lot of violence from breaking out in schools. And we do have a very nice project, and very interesting and important one. It's called Holocaust History Project, and it's about not so much about dealing with what happened during the Second World War, but more about what can we learn from what happened back then. It's done by a colleague, a Jewish colleague, and she's telling the pupils between 14 and 18 years old about her family history, and then shows what effects the Second World War had on her family. And then finally, we are doing an annual peace education conference that brings together around 300 teachers to learn about methods, about contents, and everything that's related to peace education. So as I said, our biggest project is the Peace Weeks. And it was very interesting how or why we started it. Peace education has always been the basis of the work of the ASPR, also in the 80s and 90s, but more on developing material for schools and for teachers. And then in 2007, there was this, there were the big headlines on the Kronenzeitung, the biggest newspaper in Austria. And they were saying something like, our pupils and our young people are getting more and more violent, and what kind of future can we have with those kind of young people? So we said, okay, enough is enough. We have to do something about that. We have to offer something for the schools. And indeed, there were some changes. Well, people are always changing, society is changing, and of course, young people are developing in different kinds of ways. So we wanted to offer them something to support the development of their peace competencies. So this was the time when the Peace Weeks were founded in 2007. And the pictures you will see in the presentation, they are taken inside and outside our beautiful castle, which supports the work in a very positive way, because it brings pupils really far away from their school situations in a totally new environment. And very often this helps to open up to find a new role for yourself in the group. So we very much like that. The target group of the Peace Weeks are pupils between the age of 6 and 19 years. So basically all pupils in Austria from the 1st to the 13th grade. They come from all types of schools. They come accompanied by their teachers, and we also train multipliers. What is important is that usually they come for 2 days to 5 days to Schleining. So they really spend quite some time here. They work intensively, but we also take them for small excursions around the castle or in our village to make them move, to make them do things, to make them experience things. And it really can be the first step in a further development for them. Nowadays, because of Corona, the COVID-19 pandemics, unfortunately, we cannot welcome pupils in Schleining because they're not allowed to go on excursions. So we have changed our offer to the schools. So we're now moving to the schools, well, as far as it's possible now, and do the workshops in schools. But from our experience, it is not the same. It's very different to have them here for 2 to 5 days. Oh. So what kind of methods are we using? It's young people and they like to move, they have a lot of energy, they don't want to sit and have a theoretical presentation. Of course, we give them some theoretical background, always taking into consideration their age, but we try to make our workshops very lively. They are interactive, and we also take into consideration their pre-knowledge. There are a lot of schools nowadays who are working already. They have peer-to-peer education, they have peer mediation systems, they have buddy systems installed in the schools. So we try to make it very practical for them. We also aim at picking up participants in their everyday situations to make whatever we work with them relevant to them. It doesn't make sense to give them a theoretical presentation that has nothing to do with their everyday situation in school. So we really try to pick them up. They come to us, we start by asking them, what is your opinion? How is the life in your classroom? How do you work together? How do you talk with each other? What are the challenges? What are maybe the problems? What is very positive? And so we find out in which direction they want to develop. And what is key is we help them connecting to themselves as individual, but also as group, to their feelings, also to their environment, to their colleagues. But we also work on nature, on the environment, natural environment, and then on various topics of peace and conflict in their personal reality. So we try to make it very authentic to them. So why do we do that? Because there is a need to react to violent behavior, but there are different ways of reacting to violent behavior in classroom. And we are aiming at prevention. And by the way, according to the Austrian education system, we as an NGO outside of the education system are not allowed to make any kind of intervention. So the work we are doing is mostly aiming at prevention, although sometimes the borders are not so clear. We help them improving their conflict management skills. And the aim is to create a positive climate in classroom, to support their well-being, to support the way they are learning, to support the way teachers are training them. And it's clear we're working on small piece more than on the big piece on the global issues. So what do we think are the key competencies for peace in this framework? We work with them or train them in nonviolent communication skills, also in active listening, because very often the problem is that they are lacking words for whatever problem they have. So this is something which we are doing in role plays, in small group work, and they have a lot of fun with that. And then they learn it's really important. I can say what I feel, I can say what I want, and I can try to understand my colleague, what he or she wants or is trying to tell me. Then we are working with them on their conflict management skills. What is very important for us is that still teachers are coming and asking us, how can we prevent conflicts? What is important to us is conflict is not to be prevented. You don't have a conflict just because there's a conflict. You have a conflict that shows you that something is not working very well, that there's a need for a change. And we are training them or supporting them in understanding that a conflict is a sign you can take on, and then there are different ways of dealing with conflicts. And this is what we are working with them. And then on peace competencies, including social skills. And as I said, small pieces in the focus. But of course, nowadays we are also taking on board the big piece. We try to act locally, but think globally. And so what we are aiming for is the vision of their peace, the peace they want in classroom. So team building is also an important aspect of our work. We are aiming, what is the aim of the Peace Weeks? It is supports them in finding back respect for themselves, for oneself and for each other. And as I said before, understand that conflict is an important part of our life. And it's always about the way we are dealing with conflict and not about preventing conflict. So they want more conflict competence, also teachers, and then sensitizing them for different kinds of methods for nonviolent behavior, for civic courage. And usually we are doing this with a lot of role plays, and pupils find out that it's kind of hard work sometimes, but it can also be a lot of fun to be trained in these kind of methods. We are sensitizing them for respect, tolerance, diversity, solidarity, empathy, and many, many more things like that. And we try to increase their peace competencies. So every Peace Week is evaluated, and a few weeks after they have been in Schleining, we are getting into contact with them again. And very often we come to school and do one more workshop with them to refresh whatever they've learned. We have a lot of feedback from the teachers. Many schools are using the Peace Weeks as a regular part of their curriculum already. So they're coming to us usually in autumn to start their school year in a positive way, to agree on certain aims for this school year, certain ways of behavior, certain ways of dealing with conflict. And what we train the teachers in their part of the training is little methods or background information they can use during classroom. It doesn't take a lot of time. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day can make a big difference. It's all about having a sustainability in using these methods. And we get a lot of feedback that when they're using it regularly, it can really make a change. What we are doing in Schleining can only be the first step. We can somehow push them in a direction or lead them in a direction. And when they use it regularly, it can really make a change in their being together in classroom. And let me finish with a quote. So when one dreams alone, it's only a dream. And when many dream together, it's the first step to reality. This is what we experience. And for us, these young people, they are not only the future, they are the present. They are the ones we are believing in. They can make a change. We have to make a change. And if we all believe that we can all work together for peace, then I guess one day this vision will become reality. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. Another moving, creative, life-giving project. Thank you. So I'm not sure if the I'm not sure if we pin the 4 videos other than mine. We'll be able to get all of the 4 panelists on the sort of staying on the screen at the same time, but maybe the stage crew can try that. I do have a few questions that have been put into the chat. Some have been privately texted to me. And one of them was directed at Veronica's project, but I'm going to invite all of you to address it because the conference is about peace education and religions. Is prayer practiced in any of the gatherings that you all facilitate?
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Johannes Lehnemann, but my picture doesn't come. And I would have a question to all 3 presenters.
Okay.
They are fascinating projects, but my question is, do they have anything to do with religion?
Good question. I'll let the presenters jump in as they see fit.
Shall I start? Okay.
Sure, thank you.
So we are not practicing any kind of prayers during the Peace Weeks. They are free to do so. They have free time as well, so they are free to do so, but we are not having it as part of the program. What we are doing is we are talking about religion. It's very much about diversity. Of course, very much it depends on the classes they are coming, the mix of the pupils. So it is a topic, but it is not something we are doing. So we are not praying with them, but we are talking about diversity, different kinds of religions, different looks people have, different cultures. So it is part of the content, but not of the activities.
Thank you. Others?
Okay, so maybe I can jump in. So
Any
dear,
conflicts for religions?
pardon? So dear Johannes, I think this question is quite important, and regarding to our project, it is really the objective to look about the relations between peace education on the one side, so the basics of peace education, the topics, the methods, and others, and on maybe religion. And we have very specific religious context, and the idea is how can we try to bring these 2 pillars together. This is the most important thing. And of course we had a lot of discussions, so maybe about values. So of course peace is a very important value in the religion. So how we can maybe start discussions in specific spaces about peace with the methods of peace, including peace as a value coming from the religion perspective. So and this is the idea, to try to bring things together. And at the same time we have learned that it's not so easy to talk about peace in different religious contexts. So this is a question about the methods and didactics and so on. So this is why we call this project Peace Education Meets Religion, or sometimes religion peace meets peace education. And one thing which is very fascinating for me is to have these discussions and to reflect these relations between these two topics with in small groups, at the same time thinking that when we have a final version of this manual should be contributed to a broader audience. This is why we are very, very happy about feedback and about your opinions. And of course, as mentioned before, we would like to share this with you. This would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee.
Let me just briefly respond to your question if we practiced the praying with the children. In fact, I didn't, because I'm a Christian, and we had about 90% of the kids were Muslims. So I did not pray with the children, but the parents prayed with them or other people, and we had a shared space for the people, like a prayer room. And of course we did not take pictures there, but we had a lot of space for religion. Some of the people and some of the children prayed and some of them didn't. So, and sometimes it could be that at 5 o'clock, and I was teaching German, some of our participants just get up, left the room and came back. So yeah, we did have space for praying, but I, as my person, I did not pray with them because I'm a Christian. So that's why I mean I can't pray with the Islamic children, but we shared the space together.
Thank you all for addressing that. Veronica, I have a specific question for you.
Yes.
We have a problem in Austria that the refugees find it very difficult to integrate and to identify with European values. Which measures would help the refugees to integrate more quickly into society? Are there intercultural skills that teachers need? Teachers in the schools, perhaps?
Thank you for this important question. And I think all of us, I think we are 4 Austrians here, and maybe all of us can answer your important question. So concerning our project, I would say it's a gift of cooperation. So parents as well as teachers and kids and political system and cultural values, they should cooperate together. We tried to prepare the children and the teenagers for the values that we have at school, for example, or for specific, how to say it in English, specific situations that they will have to face in an Austrian school, auf Deutsch, ich frage jetzt dann die anderen, was hast du im Vergleich zu, in comparison to in comparison to the lessons they had in for example in Syria. So yeah, I think it's not that they have to bring skills. I think that we have to do it together. I think this could be the way. And I think from the very beginning, so when the transition starts, we need transition coaches, for example, for their families. We did it. We coached them for 2 or 3 years, and it really worked out well. And some of the people you saw on the pictures still are friends of mine, or still call me when they need something. So it worked. But it has to be really continuously, the work has to be continuous.
Thank you. Ursula.
We do cooperate with the Pedagogical University of the Burgenland and do a lot of teacher training as well. And we just had a online discussion 2 days ago on this issue. And very often they say there is a lot of people are simply afraid. They don't know about what, but they are afraid. So we discussed and came up with the idea that what could be helpful, because they are always stressed. Teachers are always stressed because they have to train and teach pupils in certain topics, and there's no space. There's no space to talk about differences or about other religions, cultures, whatever. So we came up with the idea of implementing something like a safe space in school, where they can, in a safe surrounding, meet, find out about each other. And, you know, as soon as you know more about the other religion or culture, whatever, you lose this feeling of being afraid, because then you are kind of an insider. You know what certain signs mean, or what does it mean when they pray more often or less often. So it takes away this feeling of being afraid. This could make a big difference. And very often teachers simply have a lack of time. So, and I think it would be helpful, of course, to have some kind of methods trained during while they're at university. Could be helpful, but yeah, still, this is only a wish.
Thank you. Any wisdom for teachers from the Berghoff Foundation?
It depends, of course. We have a lot of other projects, not only this project which we try to present. We have for example, we have one online portal for kids where children can ask us questions, and we try to give them answers. And there are a lot of questions about the topic religion and peace. So what I can add to this main topic, we had the experiences that sometimes when conflicts are really overloaded with religion topics, it could make a difference to come in this situation with peace education methods, because peace education is a little bit neutral. So we can learn about peace and about our own understandings of peace, and we have different understandings of peace coming from different regions, from different religions, and so on. And to have a space for discussing about peace without this religion conflict situations, this could make the difference. And exactly for these specific contexts, we try to develop this manual. So this is the background. To offer very specific methods for talking about peace and, of course, about violence. And it's not so easy to talk about violence in religious conflict situations, to talk about violence, talk about war, and to talk about conflict. And we have just so different understandings of conflict in these contexts, and to find very specific methods for these contexts to talk about peace, conflict, violence, and war. This is the idea of coming up with this kind of manuals, or this kind of learning arrangements, as we call it. So we need a very specific space for having a chance to discuss this. And of course, we try to define these spaces, and it's great to do this together with colleagues from different religions. So this is the background, and therefore it's really a pilot project to try to define peace education for these contexts. This is the point.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm sure that there'll be teachers everywhere scrambling for that manual once it's available. I have a specific question for Ursula. How is the CASTLE program made available to the children of the schools? Do the schools approach you, or do you make the offers to schools?
Well, every autumn we send out the information that the project is available, and financially it's supported by the local government and the Ministry of Education of Austria. So to make it that people can don't have to pay that much. So they only have to pay for accommodation and food. The rest is financed by the state and the county. And as I said, we have some schools who are using the Peace Weeks as a regular part of their curriculum. So they come to us every September, October. And then there are schools who approach us when there's a problem already. So they can sense there is a conflict going on, or there's maybe the danger of a violent outbreak. So they contact us and ask us for support. And then there are simply schools who use it as a kind of prevention tool. So they really want their pupils to learn about how can we deal with conflicts, how can we talk to each other. So this is really part of the curricula then. And the older pupils, they very often use it to get some skills for their work life later on. So it's different ideas behind that. But most of the pupils that are coming are between 9 to 14 years old. So.
Thank you. A question arose while we were talking about prayer. And the question was whether any of you think that practicing praying would lead to or foment conflict among the children. Or is it just so not part of the structure that it doesn't seem to be an issue for the children?
So in our project, I did in these 2 years, I have not seen one single situation where the kids did have problems by praying or not praying or so. Never. I have not seen it. No.
Great. That's great.
I have a question of Johannes Lehnemann again. Do
Yes.
religious festivals play a role in your projects? Just for living together and be to guests with others in their religious festivals? Do you understand?
I don't know how well you could hear that, but the question is about whether religious festivals play a role in any of your projects. But yeah, I'm guessing not based on the structure of the projects that you described, but I'll let anybody jump in if they choose to.
Right.
Okay, I can say something. It doesn't play any role. If religion is somehow a topic in a class, then we will deal with it, but we will not deal with it by praying together or something like that. Maybe by, if kids want to, they can show each other how they do it or give them more information, but praying itself or religious festivals or something is not part of our work. So there is space if they want to introduce it to each other, but it will not be practiced.
I can maybe
Thank you.
add a perspective that is not from the current project, but from a project that we have been running for about 6 years in Jordan, where religion for sure always played a role as well, but it was just normal that it was present. It was normal that there were religious holidays and that they had to be integrated in the project structures as well and acknowledge that it is there. And so I would say it is somehow not actively addressed in the sense of content, but it is part of every project that it goes with it and it accommodates for it and it creates a space for it to be there. And for instance, when we were working in schools or in the refugee camps in Jordan, all of our participants, when we talked about peace, would eventually also relate to their belief, to their spirituality and connected with that. And as such, it was for sure present, but it was not that we would put the sort of pinpoint it out and like now speak about the connection of religion and peace or religion and conflict. It was more about, we did our peace educational program as a peace educational program, creating a space to learn about peace and constructive conflict transformation in their everyday lives, in their school settings and so on. And it was part of that constantly, but to the level that each and every individual that was present there wanted it to be part of it. And I think that this is also something that we should not forget, that it doesn't have to have that label. That is also something that is spirituality, and religion is something that is also practiced on a very individual level, and thereby integrated by each individual as it is a participant in workshops or peace education programs, for instance.
There's an American educator named Parker Palmer, a Quaker, who defined teaching. He says, to teach is to create a space in which the community of truth can be practiced. And it seems to me that that's what all of you have done. Thank you so much for sharing your projects with us today. To all of us, I want to say thank you for spending this for a session with us. It is time for a dinner break for many of you, more of a lunch break for me, though I have another Zoom I have to host for my day job. So I invite everyone to be back to the conference space at 7 Austrian time, Central European Central Time, and that's an hour and 7 minutes by my reckoning. So have a wonderful break, and we'll see you back here in a little more than an hour.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Hello? This is
I'm listening now. I think that there was some irritation about when we're going to start. Ebrahim, are you listening me?
yeah.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
I think we can start because
Yeah.
I think there was a small irritation with the time. I saw 6 o'clock, but then Eileen said we will meet after an hour. So I think not only me, we did understand it a little bit wrong, but I hope that many are still there. So we are continuing now. I'm not sure whether you can listen to me, but I hope.
Yes, we can hear you.
That's very good. We are starting now with the second session with the title Peace Education, Teacher Training and Teacher Experience. I want just to look at the chat yet we can hear. Okay, I saw it. Thanks to Adnan Aslan for organizing this very interesting and important conference. First of all, it's the first virtual conference at our institute, and I hope that we will continue to organize conferences like this. Teachers, I want just to say some words before we start with our session and before I start with our first guest. Some words about teacher. Teachers are important actors at the realization of educational processes at the school. And I think the attitudes and skills of teachers play a major role, especially when it comes to peace education. And the solid training is a very important point for advancing religious education. So that's the topic of our session. And the following speeches will get insights into various approaches and research results from different perspectives about teacher training in peace education. We have 3 speakers. As a chair, I am very glad to lead this session. First, we will start with Sami Adwan. I will introduce him with short, like Ebrahim said to me, and then give him the word for his presentation. Sami Adwan is professor for education and teacher training at the Faculty of Education in Hebron University, or at Hebron University in Palestine. He has studied at Jordan University in Amman and in San Francisco. And he has many publications. Some of them are like the role of non-governmental organization in peace building between Palestine and Palestinians and Israelis, victimhood and beyond, and a book titled Status of Religious Education in Palestinian Schools, and many other works. But they said to me, I have to keep it very short to give them time to make their speech, and he has many prizes that I will not mention now. His speech is about preparing future religious teacher, an approach to a peaceful and harmonious coexistence among different religions. Please, the floor is yours. It's very interesting when you don't see the people, but I think that we can hear each other.
Can you start the video? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that, and good evening to all. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, and thank you to Aslan also for keeping this I think spiritual mission of trying to engage religion and peace, and religion also and peace education together. And I think this is important and needed, during this time. And I'm speaking to you from Bethlehem now, And I'd like to talk about a course that I taught and ran for a few years, about 10 years at Bethlehem University. So can I share my PowerPoint? Yes. Can you give me
The right,
give me a right to share my PowerPoint, please?
please, Evrim, or maybe
It's a PowerPoint, no?
it's starting. Yes, we see it now, I think.
You see it now? Where? I don't see it, no.
I just see, yes, I mean, you have now the rights.
I have the rights, okay. Just puzzled by this. Just give me 1 second.
I think you have just to, now we see your, I mean, you have, yeah, now.
No, not this one, I'm sorry. I just want to go back a little bit, just 1 second, I'm sorry. To do this, well, okay. Okay, I'm puzzled by this now.
You have to go down to the green button. Share screen, the green button with the arrow at the bottom.
Yes, but I don't know how to get there. Just 1 second. I got the green button now, okay.
Press the green button.
And I should go to the desktop of my computer, huh?
Right, and then you have to choose the presentation you want to show us and click on that. And then go to the right bottom where it says share screen, then it should be right.
It doesn't show the desktop here. What happened?
But I think we see your desktop because we see your emails, and you just have to take your PowerPoint presentation.
Now, I think he first has to leave. You should stop the share screen, which is at the top, a red button.
Okay.
Stop that, press that.
Okay.
Okay, now go to the bottom to the green button and with the arrow press that, and then you should see your screen yourself, your desktop screen. Okay, now pick the right presentation you wish to show us.
But it doesn't come here, you know.
Now there's another step. Have you chosen the right one?
I think so, yes.
Okay, then go to the bottom right where it says share screen.
I got that.
Okay, now it should work. This is all you can do.
Okay. How can I go to my desktop? I'm sorry to delay use this time. It's a PowerPoint, so I should wait.
A green button at the bottom of the page should get you to your desktop.
Do you see this screen now?
Only after you press share screen on the right side.
Okay. Oh my God. Oh, to the right side. Yes. Okay. Okay. You saw it now. You see it now?
Now, yes.
Oh, super. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. So my things is, I think it's a follow-up for the previous three, I think, practical experiences that were presented, which is I highly emphasize the role of teachers, as was mentioned by the moderator. I think how to prepare the teachers of religion or teachers in elementary schools where they have to touch upon teaching religious education, regardless of who is religion is. I was working at Bethlehem University where my students are mainly Muslim and Christians. So that's why this course was taken by me for many reasons, because I did research relating to how the relationship between Palestinian Christian and Palestinian Muslim, and how religious education has been presented and taught. And mainly when we talk about religious education, as we all know that religion is part of our you know it's part of our daily life, because religion is still part of the conflict. So I was struck by this experience when two teachers at the afternoon one summer course, when one Muslim teacher said, Jesus, peace be upon him. And she was thinking that she really respects Jesus, and she shows how Muslims are really looking high at Jesus as a messenger and as a prophet. But all of a sudden, a Christian teachers came in sharp tone and said, "You cannot say this." And the Muslim teacher was very puzzled. You know, what should I say? Are we respect Jesus? There's full chapters about Jesus in the Quran. And she said, Jesus, peace be from him. So the word peace from him and peace upon him create a lot of way of thinking. What should we do in relation to these issues of either practices or belief? That's why we started. I started this course. Of course, I didn't. When I started this course, I didn't want to touch into the belief. I would like to touch into the practice rather than the belief, because here, if we go into the belief systems, where the stats of Jesus in Christianity, the stats of Jesus in Islam, and also was he crucified, was he not crucified, about the stats of Virgin Mary, etc. So from the beginning, I think to enter into the preparing teachers to deal with the belief system, it's a fatal approach. So I think it's better to address it from the practical things. And anyway, religious practice is what means for us as a human being. It's not religious beliefs between the individual and God. As was mentioned by the three speakers, I think, and one of the questions was raised, I think it's important people to get to know the rituals and the festival of each other's. So religious education is taught, is compulsory course in all Palestinian schools. They have to do that. And they have to do it from grade 1 to grade 12 with different periods of the week. And most of private schools are mix of Christian and Muslim students. That's why, in these type of schools, Muslim and Christian students, they study all the subjects together, but when it comes to the religious education course, they are separated. Each will go to different class or room to study. So that creates a lot of suspicions, what they teach, how they teach, what they learn, do they talk about us, they don't talk about us, etc. And when we analyze the type of schools in Palestine, mixed schools, we found out there are 4 types of schools in relation to religions background students, where some schools are majority Christian, minority Muslim, majority Muslim, minority Christians, all Muslim and all Christians. So that's one formula. And teachers should be qualified, and we think they are qualified at the university level or seminars. They should have BA degree to be able to teach. Some of them are required to take education diploma to be able to teach. And most of the teachers who used to train, they were supposed to be trained and prepared to teach in kindergarten and in grade 1 to 4, which is elementary basic schools. And those teachers, even they are educated in elementary education or classroom teacher, they are expected to teach also religious education in their side. So that's the reason why we at Faculty of Education, we decide to teach a course called Religious Education that address both teachers, Muslim and Christian future teachers, and to be able to deal with that. Even if they don't teach religion in school or religious education school, they will be sensitive to the issues related to, related to what they do, because when you are in mixed schools, there are so many activities, so many practices that goes on. That's when we designed this course. We thought it should aim to know the content of religious education school books, how it's being taught. They will be able to be planning for teaching also sessions, analyze the activities that schools are doing, and to understand the role of religion in building up student personality. Of course, it exposes students to both, to each other, religions. And this is something which we found it very challenging to a certain point. We aim also to increase the understanding and respect among students, both both religion, animosity, fear, suspicion, and ignorance. We hope to reduce that. We aim also to develop students' ability toward living together in peace or harmony, and also mitigate stereotype, extremism, fanaticism, and also misuse and misrepresentation of religion. Of course, when we talk about religion, is it only worshiping God or Allah, or is it also the practice while we relate to each others? So that's why we moved to create opportunities for students to engage together in each other religious activities. And that's also very much, we found it very much, helpful to realize what rituals are important, what they do it for, what is like that. And also the most things as maybe goes into many places, that religion always is taken for granted. But that's why also I was hoping that this course will be able to encourage students to raise serious question, critical question about their religion, about the other religion, and to feel comfortable doing that. Why this course was needed or is needed? First assumption, teachers has important role. They have very important role in influencing children, especially at young age. And also it's very important to have a line or a thin line between when we talk about religious beliefs and religious practices and rituals. And also to be able to understand that religious belief is between you and Allah and God, but religious practice is what we are affected by if we, in classes or society. Religious practice, as we felt that what brings people together more, it's also sensitive to enter discussing religious belief, but it's much easier to discuss religious practices. Teachers train separately, and that's important when we raise this issue as part of my research, which took place a long time ago, that both teachers of religion are trained separately, but that in this process, they will be able to share their experiences together here now. There are research findings which is very alarming to some, and they're very maybe acceptable to others. That when I did my research about religious and teaching religious, especially in mixed school, we found it that it's better to keep teaching religion in schools rather than leaving it to parents or mosque. And that's leads us to very important to focus on the role of the teachers, that they should be educated and prepared to take that. They don't like it that churches or mosque or religious group to be in charge. And we found that sensitivities between Muslim and Christian students in mixed school are higher than in non-mixed school. And that's really an alarming also result. And the students prefer to take side and to sit in a classroom with pupils from their own religion. And we found very also interesting ideas that both students do not respect or like the way of dressing of the other side. Both Christian and Muslim, they have concern about that. So that's why it's sensitive issues. Students are sensitive also in a way that how they are being called, how their religion are being called or described, presented. Is it Muhammad's religion or Allah religion? Is it Nazareth or Christians? These are sensitive words that created a lot of fear and a lot of suspicions. And parents, when we ask parents prefer that their children, they prefer the friends of their children to visit them rather than their children to visit their friends from the other religion. Of course, we highlight also sometimes the sensitive issue of political situation where religion, because of the Israeli occupation, sometimes is being taken as a way of discriminations and as a way of creating distance between Muslim and Palestinian Muslim and Christians. We thought religious education textbooks should include both religion. Teachers should be also use different methods in teaching and also evaluation, because it's not teaching religion should not be continue to be inoculation of knowledge or rote learning. Should be engaging in discussion is itself. And one thing is to add one period where both Muslim and Christian students study religious cultural awareness together. To start religion dialogue also in schools and communities is important, holding together joint rituals in schools. Why I'm saying this? Because this is based on observations of how religious education being taught. The school should avoid, because that's something, should avoid compelling some student to attend ceremonies or prayers of the other religion. Schools should provide opportunities for both sides religious group to practice their religion. It's not only for mosque for Muslim or praying room for Muslim or small church for the Christians. It should be allowing both to be able to practice their rituals if they want to pray. And one thing which is really important, that when we found that some teachers, some schools hire teachers and assign teaching, assigned to them teaching religious education just to fill out and fill their teaching loads. So that's why it's coming. It's not, you know, when you are not really well prepared to teach your religion in an adequate way, you tend to be more extremes or misuse your religions. Religion, also schools should give the same values, importance for holidays occasion. Like holidays should be addressed in schools the same for Christian and Muslims. So that's why I decided this course to really analyze the religious education in schools, the content, how it's being taught, and also my student to select, present, and discuss different religious topics from both religions together jointly. And of course, to analyze challenging and difficulties facing teaching religions in religious education in subjects in schools, and how to develop religious education in the right direction where harmony, understanding, and coexistence, you know, can be prevailed. So when I started this, I have to set out the terms. As one of the speakers said, she's a Christian and she doesn't know how to deal with activities praying of 90% of her, you know, group, as Muslim. It's for me also, because I'm Muslim and my class is mix of Christian and Muslims. So it's very sensitive for me also. So when we set out the terms together, we don't compare, we don't judge, there's no intention of reaching agreement, no preaching at all, no interruption, no criticism, no delegitimization, only allow the questions, why, what, you know, it's a question that help people to explain more the concept or the themes or the topics that have it. And avoid sensitive and acceptable terms, you know, avoid questioning the beliefs, which is really very sensitive when it started. When there's agreement, also we ask them to seek information. Emotion, we cannot forbid the emotion from, you know, coming out. It should be. And students should sit in mixed seating, meaning that, because when I enter the classroom, I said Muslim students sit on one side, Christian students are sitting on the other side. So we decide that they should be mixed together. And the first activities which I started, very basic things, and I would like to make it easy for both students to be able to really engage in this fearful or this skeptical way. So that's why I asked them to prepare themselves individually. What do you expect to learn about this course? What fears, worries, problems do you expect? What do you expect to offer in the course? How do you foresee your participation, engagement in the course? And open discussions always followed any kind of this, these issues. Second activity, which is
just because of the time, we don't have so much time. I gave you a little bit more because we started late.
Yes, because we started. I appreciate that. I will just zoom through. Don't worry about it.
Just to know, we have a couple of minutes, please, just to remember you.
Okay, so we engage them in topics that's related to joint topics from both religions, what they like to know more, what they like to discuss more, etc., etc. How would you like to be called? These just basic things. What requirement? Each assignment should be done by mixed group, Muslim and Christian, in full cooperation. They themselves decide what group they will take in. They decide their group, joint selected activity together, and should be based on empirical and theoretical resources and practical things. And they should prepare and discuss these jointly, and both they give the same evaluation. And the assignment is, I will just go through it. They have to analyze this content of school textbooks. They have to select topics that they would like to, for example, fasting in Christianity, fasting in Islam, praying, pilgrimage, all these examples. They selected that dowry, inheritance, men, women rights, etc. Neighborhood, all these they joined to books, and how their religion presented that, the topic others that. And we decided in this course to visit jointly holy places for both sides. And when we visit holy places, we really go deeper into discussion, the stats of these places, invite sheikh and priests also to talk to the classes. We arrange family visits, and sharing family dinners and family also holidays, so. And also we ask my student to go into classroom and facilitate for the people religious activities, plan religious play, rituals together. Different Christian, assignment by different Christian denomination, Islamic school group, etc. These issues became also important. The reaction of the course is very amazing. Some of them, they felt anger, upset, feeling uncomfortable, but some of them feel satisfied content. Interreligious disagreement start to come up. Grouping according to religion sometimes reformed. Some students continue to use we and they, eruption of emotion, shouting, crying, accusation, etc. Some feeling need to be more, some people feel they need more to go more and understand their religion much better. Reaction of the course also continue that you need to know more about your religion, become much more careful in using incentive. Students start to know how to relate to the other religion, use the right words. Students feel comfortable because each side has equal opportunity, enjoyment, and they don't want to end the course. They don't want to end the course, and they will advise their even friends to take part of that. And they wish themselves to take the course again, and hopefully they become able to avoid extremism, dogmatism, etc. Students feel I can now better resist religious discrimination. They develop more respect for the other religious and places. Challenges and risk as we're imbalanced in leading the course, imbalanced in the knowledge, because I don't know much about Christianity. Keeping repeating Muslim and Christian, Islam and Christianity sometimes sounds as discrimination, and able to intervene in discussion to avoid taking side, and able to handle erupted emotion, and able also to keep respecting the term of reference, the persistent effects of the daily life and the stereotype that they bring, the children bring, the student bring from their family, an equal number of students in the classroom. Lesson learned, which is very important, avoid to use the word dialogue and religious tolerance, maybe that's contrary to others. Work toward understanding, respecting, and accepting, focus on religious symbols and avoid discussing belief, avoid comparison, who's right and who's wrong, who's going to heaven, who's not going to hell. What's important for us as a human is the relationship between people. You can do whatever you can, but don't expect to finish the good deeds. The positive effect maybe could not last long. And finally, I came to these three definitions. I'm sorry, maybe I'm overtaking my time. As I reached toward understanding, respecting, and accepting, where understanding, you have to understand the other religion as the way they would like them to be understood, and to respect other religions, symbol, ritual, etc., and to accept them the way they are, not use any means to harm them or to feel comfortable living together in peace. And I end up here by thanking the organizers and for the good listening. And I'm sorry if I exceeded my time, but that's life.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I think there will be many questions, but we will take them then at the end. Thank you very much again. Now we will continue with Şenol Yardi from Austria. I will present him also very shortly. He studied educational science, philosophy, Islamic religious pedagogy, and political education in Innsbruck, Vienna, and Krems. everywhere in Austria. He made his PhD at the university in Klagenfurt, and since 2014 he is or was working as an Islamic religious teacher at several public high schools, and since 2017 he is doing his research into religious and interreligious education at the University of Graz. And please, Cheryl, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to share my presentation. If you give me the right, okay. Can you give me the right? How can I do it?
Evrim, I don't know. I'm not the one who...
You are now co-host. You can do what you want.
Okay. Do you see my presentation?
No, we don't.
Okay, just 1 second, please. Yeah, you...
Yeah. No, now we see it. I mean, I see
you. Okay. Good. Dear colleagues, I am pleased to have this opportunity to present to you a brief insight into our current project and sharing with you some empirical results on the contribution of interreligious team teaching lessons to peace education. Before going on to present to you the project from which I take my data, allow me to give you a very brief summary of the context of this project. That is a brief outline of the station of denominational religious education in Austria. Although Austria is a secular state, religions are being supported and freedom of religion is protected by law. There are 16 officially recognized religious groups that are allowed to provide religious education at schools. While denominational religious education means that different religious communities are taught separately, our focus is on team teaching lessons, including Catholic and Islamic pupils and teachers. Referring to that concept, I will use the term interreligious in my talk, although you may be more familiar with the term interfaith. In our project, we use interreligious learning to describe an encounter and discussion on equal terms with other religions. At our institute, we are currently working on a project titled Integration Through Interreligious Education. The project team itself is also interreligious. The project is sponsored by the Department of Integration at the Austrian Chancellery and is headed by Professor Wolfgang Weira. In case you were wondering what part I play in this project, I am responsible for the design and implementation of interreligious teaching sessions, which are planned and taught jointly by Catholic and Islamic religion teachers. These teaching sessions are tested and evaluated at selected high schools in different regions of Austria. After the lessons, the project team conducts open group discussions about their experience with the participating teachers and a few of the students. Some parts of these discussions are what I use as the basis of my presentation today. Now, I would like to continue and present the general aims of our project. And the key concept behind it is that interreligious team teaching lessons can serve to promote awareness of religious plurality among peoples. They can learn together from and about their own and other religions by engaging in a dialogue and discovering the parallels and differences between their respective religious traditions. It is anticipated promotes an understanding of each other's religious beliefs and improves social cohesion. So far, the project team has reflected on our experiences from a didactic and theological point of view, always starting out from our interreligious perspective. This is my first effort to discuss some aspects of our findings from the student-teacher discussions with regard to peace education. As of now, we have carried out our project in 4 schools. In this speech, I present to you some results from one particular school. Allow me to begin with the outcome of a discussion between a Catholic and Islamic religion teacher. These 2 teachers conducted team teaching lessons in a high school on the topic of religious views on love and matrimony. In the following segment, I will share 4 passages from this discussion. I will start by reading quotation and then present a preliminary interpretation. Allow me to begin with the first quotation by religion teacher. The dialogue takes place not only among the pupils, but also between the two of us. And when we talk to each other in front of the class, that is a representative dialogue where, on the one hand, they can listen simply to what we are saying and learn something about the contents. And on the other hand, we act as role models, unquote. This statement made by one of the teachers expresses the idea that in interreligious learning, a dialogue takes place both between students and among teachers. And of course, it also takes place between teachers and students. Therefore, direct interaction can promote a candid exchange between different religions. Teachers act as role models and pupils learn in 2 ways, both the contents discussed and establishing an open dialogue between the religions. Next, on to the next second teacher quote. He is a Muslim, I am a Catholic, and we don't just talk to each other. We actually get on with each other. And the fact that we have completely different opinions on images of God or on our respective holy scriptures does not imply that we cannot treat each other with respect and humor, or that we cannot sometimes just fool around together and get on well, unquote. This passage centers around the question of how to deal with differences, that is, the ability to be tolerant and respectful towards other religions' orientations. Obviously, the personal level plays an important part here. Mutual understanding can help us to accept and respect divergent views regarding concepts of God, sacred texts, etc. Again, I am going on to the next quote. And in this space, which is more or less free from fear, you can work in a completely different way from what you can do when there is always some kind of threatening scenario or hierarchical gap, unquote. Here, the discussion is about the creation in a space of interreligious interaction that is as free from anxiety as possible, so that a productive working atmosphere can be created. To this end, it is necessary that teachers break down hierarchies and do not allow elements of threat to evolve. In such an environment, an interreligious dialogue can then take place on equal terms. I would now like to move on to the last teacher quote. I think that is, in the end, it is big plus. Eventually realizing that the difference is real and that there is nothing threatening about that. We are not the same, we don't treat the same, we don't pray the same, and yet he is all right the way he is okay, and he should be allowed to be what he is. And I am all right the way I am okay, and I should be allowed to be what I am. The true art we have got to learn is to accept our differences and to consider them not a threat, but something we all can profit from, unquote. In this passage, the teacher emphasizes the reality of the differences between religious beliefs. It is important to learn to accept that fact. This can only be achieved when differences are not perceived as threatening. Only then do we get the chance to perceive and accept others as they are. You now have an idea of teachers' stance on inter-religious learning. After this insight into the teacher discussion, I would like to go on to the results of the student discussion. Again, I will present a total of 4 passages. The first quote runs as follows: "To be not always focusing on our own religion, but to see also what religion is like for the others," unquote. What can be derived from this passage? It is a statement made by a student who expresses the intention to broaden his own horizon and acquire knowledge about other religions in order to get to know other religions' views. And interaction or discussion with representatives of other religions, as well as learning about religious diversity, make it possible to break away of one's own limited worldview. Allow me to continue with the following quote. Yes, there are many similarities between the religions that you simply wouldn't accept. And there are also many prejudices that get eliminated. Prejudices you simply have because you learn them, for example, from your parents or generally from your family, from the way they talk about other religions at home. And that is why I think such projects are great, unquote. This student addresses the prejudices that are often the result of one's socialization or education. These prejudices can be overcome by interacting with others. Finding the similarities between the religions can contribute to this process. This takes us right to the next quote, that you can also form your own opinions on other religions and see what differences there are, what similarities there are, and that you don't just repeat what you get to hear at home, unquote. Another student discusses the empowerment to form one's own opinion, thus replacing at least partially formally adopted convictions. This allows for differences and similarities to be identified, which would otherwise have remained unrecognized. In order for such insights to be gained, however, it is necessary that interreligious learning enables pupils to reflect on their habitual orientations and to distance themselves from them, so they are then free to develop their own approach to other religions. We now have reached the last quote. Well, in my opinion, in both religions, for example, human rights are very important, because just as we are taught not to hurt other people and to value other people and treat them well, so are the Christians, unquote. In this passage, the people discovers common ground between Islam and Christianity in their emphasis on universal human rights. On the basis of such shared convictions, the possibility of understanding then arises. Mutual recognition and appreciation are important prerequisites for living together in a multi-religious society. This is the end of my exemplary analysis. What conclusions then we can draw from the data I have presented about peace education in interreligious lessons? I am presenting the following points as they arise in the list of aims of peace education according to the German religious pedagogue Elisabeth Neurath. Let me first say a word about the promotion of compassion and empathy. Viewed from a subject-oriented perspective, interreligious learning means seeking a dialogue with others in order to help us understand and reflect on our own feelings, thereby improving our competences in interpersonal interaction. The meeting with the other can serve to arise awareness in students and teachers and to make them develop respect towards those of a different faith. As a result, interreligious learning contributes to greater tolerance and peacefulness. My next point is learning to talk about and discuss religion and religions. A verbal exchange with others and the self-reflection associated with it offer an opportunity of divining one's own standpoint and experiencing how to peacefully accept other perspectives. In interreligious lessons, students get to talk to each other, thus developing an ability to exchange in dialogue. Such interactions give both students and teachers the opportunity to talk about their worries and prejudices on equal terms without fear or hierarchies. Finally, all this is also about accepting and embracing differences and pluralism. One important aspect of the whole project is the realization that neither Christianity or Islam are a homogeneous group, but must be understood in all their diversities. In interreligious lessons, teachers and pupils get the chance to question traditional interpretations and patterns of thinking and to enter into an open discourse. This helps to put their individual position into perspective and to avoid religious fundamentalism or an absolute view of one's personal faith. Interreligious learning means developing the ability to reflect on religious and ideological similarities and differences. And when it comes to differences, it is important to approach them open-mindedly, attentively, and respectfully. This brings me to the end of my presentation. I am glad to have been able to present to you some thoughts and ideas from our current research project. Please bear in mind this discourse on the role of interreligious education in peace education is continually evolving and that my findings are by no means final results. Enjoy the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, for this very interesting presentation from the work in Graz. And now we will start with the third presentation. Professor Johannes Lennemann is now will make his presentation on religious values and peace education, a practical approach. I don't have to say so much about him. He is a very famous professor for Protestant religious education, and he was the chair for religious education at the University of Erlangen for many years, 81, 2007. His research areas are world religion in education, world religions in education, education for religions and cultural encounter, religions on peace and education. Please, the floor is yours, and yes, you can start.
Heartily welcome to you all. I'm very much glad to be part of this magnificent conference. And to just introduce me a bit, it's always not so easy to be at the end of the day, but I will do my best. And I need my presentation. The host did not free my for my PowerPoint presentation.
The host is there. He should.
Host did not free.
Hello, our host. Are you?
Sent my presentation and I have it on my computer, but it is said that it is not being given for free.
Just a moment.
It's the same signal.
I'm just trying to contact him again.
Now you are co-host. You can do what you want.
Yes.
Good.
Now it should be seen.
Yes.
Yes. Fine. My theme is religious values and peace education at the 10th World Assembly of Religions for Peace 2019. As chairman of the Peace Education Standing Commission of the Global Movement of Religions for Peace more than 20 years, I will inform about the recent endeavors and results of the commission work. Founded in 1999, the task of the commission has been to document interreligious peace education projects in different religious, national, and regional contexts, and to inspire exchange about their concepts, strategies, methods, and experiences. As background, we have in mind the thesis of Hans Kögel as the initiator of the Global Ethic Project. Do you see the screen now? PowerPoint presentation?
Is there a problem?
Can you see it?
We see it, yeah, we can see it.
Fine. Let's take it over here.
No, now we don't.
It's there?
Now we don't see. Wir sehen Ihren Bildschirm, aber nicht die Präsentation.
Dann gebe ich nochmal wieder zurück.
Yes?
Yes, fine. As background, we have in mind the thesis of Hans Kögel as the initiator of the Global Ethic Project. No peace among the nations without peace among the religions. No peace among the religions without dialogue between the religions. No dialogue between the religions without global ethical standards. No survival of our globe without a global ethic. Our thesis is no peace among religions without interdiscerning. The motto for our work is taken from the preamble of the UNESCO Constitution. Since wars begin in the minds of men, it's in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. In consequence, the duty of the Peace Education Standing Commission can be described in the following way. Much important work is already being carried out today in the field of peace education. The Peace Education Standing Commission has taken upon itself the job of bringing this practical work closer together with the messages and forces of peace inherent in the various religious traditions. We document positive examples of interreligious and intercultural education, of violence-free communication, and spiritual trainings. The work has mainly been done on 3 levels. At the Nuremberg Forums for Intercultural Education, through blockules with documentation and systematic presentation of interreligious and intercultural peace education projects, in commission work during World Assemblies and European Assemblies of Religions for Peace. The concrete field of our work can best be described looking at the titles of our publications since 2001 in cooperation with the chair for religious education at the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg. Peace education from faith traditions, a soul for education, projects for spiritual and ethical learning across religions, preservation, development, reconciliation, religious education and global responsibility, introduce and values education in Europe, map and handbook, media power and religions, the challenge facing intercultural dialogue and learning, the role of interreligious education in overcoming fear and building trust, human rights and religion in educational context, and finally, public theology, religious diversity, and interreligious learning. The 10th Assembly of Religions for Peace was the first to be held in Germany under the overall theme, Caring for our Common Future, Advancing Shared Well-being. In a time of growing tensions in different regions of the world, a time threatened by extremism, populism, the climate change, and the emergence of fake news, religions can throw fuel on the fire in conflicts, but they can also promote peace and play preventive, conflict minimizing, and reconciliatory roles. 900 delegates from 125 countries and 17 different religions worked together from 20th to 23rd August 2019 with the Women's and the Youth Conference one day before. The picture shows how all delegates assemble at the symbol of the Ring for Peace at the shore of Lake Constance. United Nations High Commissioner Miguel Andes Moratinos explains the motto. All faiths should acknowledge their interrelation and support the universal values of human dignity and the integrity of nature. The Assembly worked in 5 commissions. First, multi-religious vision of positive peace. Second, preventing and transforming violent conflicts. Third, promoting just and harmonious societies. Fourth, advancing sustainable and integral human development. And fifth, protecting the earth. The task of peace education has been treated in Commission 3 under the subtitle Religious Values and Peace Education, a Practical Approach. The working group on peace education gathered with activists in the field of religious and interreligious education from 10 countries and different religious and educational contexts in America, North and South, Africa, Asia, and Europe, against the backdrop of the experience that in many social, cultural, and religious contexts, the decline of values can be found as a source of conflict, intolerance, and misbehavior. Education, on the other hand, is one of the most important factors for breaking down ignorance and prejudices, which are the dangerous preconditions for violent conflict. Taken in the final Lindau Declaration, we commit to preventing violent conflict by advancing peace education from early childhood to adults across our religious communities, focusing on shared values, religious literacy, and narratives of peace. In our working group, we have been united in the fundamental conviction that religions have, each in a specific way, the belief in the fundamental unity of mankind and of the interrelationship of all living and existing beings. Love, compassion, tolerance, ability to forgive, truthfulness, hope are values which cannot be imposed by law, but which are inherent in religious traditions and are necessary for a real well-being in society. They can be experienced and trained with young people in religious communities and in cooperation with public education in schools and other educational areas. Interreligious, we have formulated a number of recommendations for multi-religious actions. First, initiating systematic and experiential approaches to cross-cultural and interreligious education. Second, encourage interreligious councils and the broader Religions for Peace family members to initiate dialogue training workshops. Third, cooperating with institutions and promoters of intercultural education, as for example, UNESCO and the Alliance of Civilization. Fourth, develop an inventory of best strategies and programs in the field of interreligious education. On cooperation and public education in schools and universities. Fifth, strengthening the work of peace education through the exchange of interreligious peace education projects. And sixth, research measurable evaluation indicators for interreligious education. We have listed a number of examples of best practice. At first, institutional work in the European context. There's the interreligious educational work of the Global Ethic Foundation in Tübingen with many, many practical projects. You have heard about the Berghoff Foundation Institute for Peace Education, and Uli Deger is with us. Interreligious textbooks development, which is very important, a research project which I started with the University of Erlangen, Nuremberg, Rostock, and Vienna. REDCO, Religion and Education, a contribution to dialogue or factor of conflict in transforming societies of European countries. A research in 10 European countries. Initiatives in other continents than Europe, interreligious understanding and solidarity through cross-cultural education, the Adyen Foundation, Beirut, Lebanon. She is also present here in this conference. The educational work of the Interreligious Coordinating Council in Israel in exchange with the Arab Education Institute in Bethlehem. The Spirit and Education Movement in Thailand, founded by Sulak Sivaraksa. Family education in the communities of Risho Kosekai in Japan. The Latin American Interreligious Network of Peace Education. You see, there are quite a number of examples which are very important. I finish the aim. The aim of interreligious learning is to act on the belief, my religion is a way to peace, and I am connected with brothers and sisters in other religions and worldviews on our common way to peace. The picture shows a group of children gathered at one of the World Assemblies of Religions for Peace in Kyoto, and each child came with a message, I'm Shinto, my religion is a way to peace. I'm Christian, my religion is a way to peace. I'm Muslim, my religion is a way to peace. And you see the General Secretary of the Religions for Peace at the left, William Bentley, and in the middle, Mustafa Cherish, at that time, Reis al-Ulama from Bosnia, who made a lot of work in reconciliation after the war in the former Yugoslavia. This is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lehnemann, for this insight in the institutional and initiatives in Europe and out of Europe. Now, and thank you for being on time. Now we have 15 to 20 minutes time for asking questions about the presentations. So you are invited for your questions. Please You can write your questions or you can speak and tell us, do you have any question about the presentations that we had now? We saw how they are working in Palestine, in interreligious with Christian and Muslim students. We heard about the project in Graz, where we heard about some interviews and conclusions about students and teachers, both Muslims and Christians, and we heard also about the institutional work and some initiatives in interreligious peace education. So
my question and Sami Adwan, if it is possible, can I ask him?
Yeah, Adnan Aslan is asking.
Yeah.
Please tell your name first and then continue.
Sami, my question to you, do you have any relation to the schools in Israel? Do you have any cooperation, some project with the schools in Israel?
Thank you, Adnan.
To me.
No, this is for Sami.
Yeah, thank you for this question, Adnan. I think the political situation now is not helping any kind of joint cooperation across borders, I would say, but there is cooperation. I have, kind of relationship with the universities, like in Tel Aviv University, Ben Gurion University, where we meet and discuss. But because of the political situation, our mainly project is being freezed. Though we had cooperation with many schools in Israel where we developed a very nice book called Empowering the Voices of Children. But now it's because of political situation, it's become sensitive and you have to cross checkpoints. It's the PDS also, and being also criticized by the BDS committee. It's become challenging nowadays, Adnan. Hopefully the situation will ease soon and we return to cross-border cooperation.
Same to the Arabic school in Israel or only Jewish schools?
No, my cooperation was with 3 types of school: Arab school, which Palestinian schools in Israel, Jewish school in Israel, and also mixed school where Jews and Arabs you are going, like Nevi Shalom school and Yad Viad school. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have 2 questions. One question is, what is your opinion? What is the role of collective memory in interreligious education and peace education? It's to everybody from you, so everybody could answer the question, or anybody. Who would like to?
So that it really is an important point, because the historical memory is connected with many, many narratives. And you have to know about this, and also with the difficulties to overcome fear and prejudices. It is, for example, that the prejudice that there is one line from the Crusades to colonialism, or that there is no real value in the Western tradition, which is to be talked about and discussed and to be cleared and to know these narratives.
Thank you.
I can say a few words about this. I think collective memory in our situation plays a very significant role because of how you really clinch and maintain any religious historical narrative, as I would say. If the Israeli continues to say this is the promised land, that God promised us the land. So this has influenced any kind of interreligious education. At the same time, when the Palestinians said this is an Islamic waqf, so we stuck in between 2 dichotomy where how we break through this and try to create a shared meaning for this. That's why the term Holy Land became sometimes very transcending in the 3 phases. but still, I think religious memory comes back and forth, especially if you talk about how Jews were in the peninsula, the relationship between Prophet Muhammad and the early years of Islam, and also Jews tribes, and it still comes back and back and forth. So this sometimes, unfortunately, in conflict time, you only choose negative examples. You avoid, I don't know, for good reason, of course, because you want to reinstate the animosity between both sides. There are good example, which could be helpful from the interreligious, memory, collective memory in relation to, and helpful in interrelation and created interreligious relation, and like good neighborhood sometimes, good examples in the, if you look at Andalusia time, if you look at North Africa time, where Muslim and Christian and Jews, if you look at Palestine even before the Balfour Declaration and before the 20th century conflict, Muslim and Christian and Jews used to live together in peaceful and neighborhood without any kind of fear. So these good example of memory, collective memory, would only be selected when we are overcoming, or being used mainly when we overcome the political situation that we are stuck in. I'm talking about Palestinian-Israeli context, of course, now. And now there's big argument with, is it the Western Wall? Is it part of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or is it part of the remains of the Western Wall? Just if you put that inside, so it's become divisive, memory.
Thank you.
I can say that my experience was very positive. One student, for example, said that you should not fixate on your own religion. This is a big chance. Normally they are together in a school context, but especially in this context, in an interreligious context, they have this chance to question traditional patterns of thinking. It was for the students, of course, new. Normally they are together in another subjects. In this case, they can talk each other, they can engage in a dialogue. This is a very, very important. They have this possibility. I am very thankful that we gave this possibility based on through our project.
Thank you very much. There is another.
Of course, I want to say you can calm down the conflicts in these lessons. There are conflicts, but you can calm down. I mean, if they discuss about their conflicts, etc. This is a positive experience. They just shared with us, the students. Yeah.
Thank you. There is another question, two questions. The first question is for Professor Lehnemann. What was the main difficulty you faced all these years working for peaceful interreligious understanding?
There are many difficulties. You have to cope.
But the most difficult.
Of course, just the terror attacks. If there is one, you have worked for years and years, and the old prejudices are up again. Of course, the opinion of aggressive Islam is spreading, and after such a thing, and you have to work again. Another point is, of course, also the difficulties between different denominations in the interreligious work at place. How bring them together, Sunni Muslims and Ahmadiyya and Baha'i in a respectful way, because many of them have a very difficult experience in the background. And then a third thing are the media, which like to bring the bad stories and not the good stories. You have to work and work and work that the good stories really come over and have a broader echo in the society.
Thank you. There is another similar question. My question goes to Cheryl, says it, because he has the empirical overview, but the others are also welcome to answer. what is the greatest challenge in terms of the interreligious work of religion teachers and in peace education, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the most important aspect, I can say, to break up your, how can I say, your habitual orientations, this exclusive view of on the religions. It is a big challenge if you can argue based on theological aspects that is possible. You don't have to through, I mean, we are on the way as a religious person. We don't have the absolute truth. We are working on them. This is maybe a big challenge. If you are open-mindedly, you can promote different, of course, competences like empathy, the ability, the empathy of to promote the ability by students, etc. The teachers play a big role. They as a role model. I mean, the teachers which are working who are working with us say this is very important. Our school context is plural, and we have to discuss in interreligious sessions. And for pupils also, they have also this possibility. They can ask each other. They can bring their own prejudices. They can correct them. This is, of course, this is a process, like Professor Jäger said. This is a process. I mean, very important aspect.
Please, who wants to?
Yeah, there are many actually obstacles and challenges. One thing, you're not alone. Actually, there's so many players that plays in different tones or different direction. For example, the media. How media present religion, in what way. I just give example of Prime Macron when he said in the last events that stereotyping sometimes is create a lot of impossibility between to engage in peace education using religion. When he said people stereotype Islam as terrorists, and that's really create a lot of bad feeling among Muslim. We can say there's a Muslim is terrorist, a Christian is terrorist, a Jew is terrorist, a Hindu is terrorist, but we cannot generalize on religion. That's religion of terrorist, for example. That's one thing. There are also potential media. I mean, it's important. Ignorant is important. That the first keynote speaker, Mrs. Hassan, presented. We should go beyond and read about the others. The other thing which is created the mispresentation of your own religion. Sometimes you mispresent your own religion, so you become yourself a problem, an impediment in creating peace education using religion. You don't represent yourself if you saying you are Muslim or Christian or Jews. You present your religion if you take this identity. So any action that you take, it's being counted as it is, of all of your beliefs. So media, interested group. Sometimes we find it in the Palestinian side. Missionaries, sometimes they create a lot of sensitive issues between Muslim and Palestinian, Muslim and Christians, because they come this, we want to protect you, we want to, as if they are, being threatened, for example. So the issue is very complicated. The media, ignorant, dogmatism. And I think some religious group in all religions try to show themselves they are the supreme and the others are not worth it. So you're not alone, actually. The daily practice between neighborhoods, the daily life has importance and influence in how peace education using religion as means or as a way to create coexistent and harmonious, relationship.
Thank you. Professor Lederman?
I would like to add that one task is to convince the public of the importance of interreligious education. Just in our Western context, we have often parts of the society who think religion is bad and we shouldn't have it in school and shouldn't talk about that. And they have the prejudice that we always are missionarying in the schools. But just the school is a public place where you can talk about it and inform and give just the intellectual insight in what religions really mean. And I think this is a way in Germany we are in some kind on a good way, as for example, the foreign ministry is really supporting the interreligious work in many aspects.
Thank you. We don't have so much time, but I just want to ask the last question and then to close this session. There is a question about shortly, how important is pluralism for you as a topic for your project, for your official or your individual life?
Pluralism.
Please
go ahead.
I would say pluralism is a great richness for me to be not in a very narrow way of living and experiencing and just the meeting with people who are on a way in the future in the different religions is a great wealth, great richness.
Thank you.
For me, it's very enriching through my training of my student, both Christian and Muslim. I think it's enriching to discover how enjoyable sometimes to live in differences and diversity, and how important to take these diversity as means of bringing people together rather separating them, and how to live in differences and different rituals, different food, different culture. I live in Beit Jala. I enjoy hearing the church, the bell of the church when it rings in the morning or the afternoon. It gives me a lot of positive feeling also. And also I'm sure that also when you hear the call for a prayer for others should be acceptable. I think diversity is what we are creating for, and diversity is a means to give us a way to engage more rather than to be separated from each other.
Thank you also. Shannon?
Yes, I can summarize for me. We have the ability to respect and value the lifestyles, different beliefs, etc. For me, that is the ability to have the ability. I mean, this is very important.
Thank you very much to all presentators and to all participants. We see it's a very interesting topic, and there is yet something to do in this field, but I think these conferences like this one from Adnan is a very important opportunity to exchange our experiences and to work in this area. So I have just to say that we are going to continue tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central European Time, and with the session 3 about pedagogical concepts for coexistence and peace education. So thank you to everybody, and I wish you a nice evening. And for somebody, maybe something else, somebody is from a different country, but have a nice time and see you tomorrow again.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.